Usually when I see new players signing up for Grand RP, they either want to be a part of the law enforcement force or they want to be a gang member, because both of those things are things that you cannot do in GTA 5 Online, and they both represent two sides of the law. One legal, the other illegal. And in today's video, I'm going to answer one of the most important questions in the minds of every new Grand RP player. How do I join the LSPD? Things honestly haven't changed much in 2026 when it comes to joining the police, apart from a few tweaks to existing mechanics. So in this video, it's going to act as both a guide for new players as well as a nice little refresher course for veterans who haven't been a state employee in a very long time. So the first thing first, how do you even apply to be part of the LSPD? How do you know if they're hiring new officers? Well, first off, you should probably sign up using my link if you haven't already been playing on Grand RP, because you get both a bunch of free goodies at the start of your career, plus Grand RP is literally free to play, so there's zero risk involved. My link is down in the description below or pinned comment, and that will take you to the official Grand RP page, and from there, join English server number 1 and join the Hazard Gang, which is my Grand RP family. But back to our question here. Remember that at the end of the day, Grand RP is a roleplay server, and there's a finite count of officer roles open at any given time on each server. You hit that limit, you can't accept new recruits, no matter how motivated or interested they may be. And so here's what you need to do. First, go on the Grand RP forums and check if there are any posts mentioning new hires for LSPD. And if they are hiring, you'll be able to fill out a form with all your roleplay credentials. If it gets accepted, you'll then be entered into a short list of potential recruits who are then screened even further through a general purpose interview that tests your knowledge of the server rules. Ghetto rules, state rules, rules against metagaming and power gaming, all that sort of stuff. There are also multiple departments within the LSPD, like public relations, traffic, HR, SWAT, internal affairs, etc. So depending on which one of these departments is hiring, you could be asked different sets of questions in your interview, as they all have slightly different requirements for them. And I'll show you how to prepare for these interviews so you can ace them on your first try, but there is one thing you can't beat by studying, and that's the minimum requirements for being an LSPD officer. You have to be at least level 5 on the server, your real life age needs to be 16 or above, can't have a criminal record, you can't have any illegal tattoos, and you'll also need health insurance plus a gun license, a driving license, a water transport license, and an aircraft license. So level 5, no criminal record, at least 16 years of age, and a whole bunch of licenses. Now, the license part is easy enough, as you can either apply for those legally or buy them on the darknet with some of your cash. However, wiping your criminal record is a bit harder here. For that, you'll have to visit the DOC and get a name change. And if you have any illegal tattoos, you should probably get rid of those before showing up for your first interview. Now let's talk about the interview process. What you need to know, how many questions there are, all that good stuff. Basically, what the interviewers are trying to do is test your knowledge of server rules. They're trying to know if you understand your duties as a police officer and if you can adapt to rapidly changing situations on the field. So for example, they might ask you basic stuff like, what do cops do in Grand RP? And you can say that cops enforce the law and keep the community safe for the public, or that cops help lower crime rates and create public trust. Then you might get asked about metagaming, what to do when someone is metagaming. What even is metagaming? And metagaming is basically when someone acts using information that the player knows, but their in-game character isn't necessarily supposed to know. It's when you use info available outside of the game itself, like going on the internet and looking up stuff, or using Discord to communicate and coordinate with other players outside of the official server chat. LSPD interviews also contain questions about power gaming, which you should be familiar with because it is the most blatant way to break immersion in RP. Whenever someone's character does something that defies server logic or human capabilities, it's power gaming. Like they get shot in the chest, but don't go into the crawling animation, or they get back up after being quote-unquote killed, as if it's just another video game with a quick respawn, even though it's supposed to be a realistic RP server. Anything that prioritizes performance optimization over realism is considered power gaming in RP, as it breaks the rules as well as breaks immersion for others at the expense of boosting the other guy's KD ratio or whatever he thinks is more important than the role-playing experience. Now, these are just a small fraction of the concepts that you should be familiar with before giving your interview for the LSPD. I also suggest reading up on state rules, the ghetto rules, FIA roleplay, as well as mixing, as those are also covered in the interview process. If you pass the interview phase of the recruitment process, you'll then be inducted as a trainee, where you'll be taught the various ins and outs of being a cop in the LSPD. There are 3 phases to training, and it usually takes 3 days. Day 1 is learning where to get your uniform, familiarizing yourselves with your gear, and you'll also get a tour of the HQ where you're told how the armory works and how to get your duty weapons. On Day 2, you'll learn the radio codes that cops use to communicate with each other, like 10-4 for affirmative and 10-2 for negative. Day 3 is the final phase of your training, and on this day, you'll do certain police tasks in coordination with your trainer as practice for the real thing later on. You'll make arrests, hand out tickets, inspect different crime scenes within the city, go on patrols, learn how to work as a team with your partner, all that good stuff, right? Once you finish your training, you're now a bona fide LSPD officer with a badge as well as a gun, so congratulations. Next, you'll have to familiarize yourself with the police HQ and learn where everything is, from the briefing room all the way to the changing room. You'll also have access to some of the fastest pursuit cars in the game, which are faster than even a Bugatti or Koenigsegg. And you guys also get a few police choppers for aerial fire support and tracking down fleeing criminals and suspects. Once you've toured the HQ, you should also visit the prison complex where you'll find holding cells, isolation cells for those who attempt escapes, medical rooms, and workspaces where prisoners can do various tasks to reduce their sentence. Knowing and understanding all this stuff will help you because you definitely don't want to put the wrong guy in the wrong place when you bring him in. And if some convict tries to escape or they're slacking off on the job, you should know how to deal with them as well. Most of the time, as an LSPD officer, you're just driving around handing out parking tickets or towing illegally parked vehicles alongside your partner, but occasionally you'll get some of the more exciting stuff like chasing down speeders, intercepting criminals at an armed robbery, or maybe you'll even get to raid a gang's base with the whole PD at your back. The really fun events happen when there's a global threat, like 5 or 6 illegal family heads commanding their forces in some giant standoff versus the cops, and during these situations, you'll often be working alongside other departments on the server like the SAHP and FIB to bring down these high-level threats. And as a police officer, while you do have access to the fastest cars in the game, you aren't supposed to break the speed limit unless you have a reason to do so, meaning if you're just patrolling the area or responding to a call or going to a restaurant to order some donuts, you can't slam the pedal down to get there faster. As a representative of the state, you must hold yourself to the same standards that you apply to others. Otherwise, your fellow officers will be forced to put you in handcuffs and bring you in for some questioning. Then you also have to report back to HQ on radio anytime you drop a perp with your gun or you get into a high-speed chase, because monitoring and reporting on the situation is one of your official duties. You also have a body cam that you should turn on whenever you head out for your daily patrols, because you never know when the agency will ask you to submit your last 2 or 3 days of body cam footage for review. There are legal consequences to breaking rules, and sometimes lawyers will ask you to submit your POV footage as evidence, so I suggest keeping the cam footage with you for at least a week before deleting it. Another thing you need to remember is that going into the ghettos without backup or explicit orders from HQ is basically a death sentence here. If you get captured and taken hostage, your department will have to foot the bill for your release, and depending on your rank, they might have to pay as much as $700,000 or $800,000 in ransom for you. As for money making, you don't exactly make a whole lot in terms of your hourly base pay rate. It's only like $8,000 per hour, which is nothing to write home about, but you also make up for that with bonuses and RP tickets. Every time you set out on a patrol or respond to an emergency call, there's a chance you'll be rewarded for your efforts with an RP ticket, and this is tied directly to how many hours you spend in the game. Then you also have bonuses, which are given based on your performance, so number of successful arrests, number of vehicles towed, how many drugs and different kinds of drugs you managed to seize in a raid, that kind of stuff. And I recommend taking screenshots of all your actions so you can submit them as proof on the LSPD Discord, and this will help you secure those bonuses. But ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have for this 2026 Grand RP LSPD guide. I want to know from how many of you who have applied for the LSPD on that server and whether your applications were accepted or rejected. What has been your experience so far? Most of the time, players don't understand what they did wrong when their application gets rejected, and they just keep trying and trying again blindly, only to keep repeating the same mistakes each time. So I hope this guide provided you with some proper insight into how their hiring process works, and if you follow my tips in this video, I guarantee you that the next time the LSPD does a hiring wave on Grand RP, you'll be one of the first recruits who makes it through the academy and into the police force. Thank you so much for watching this video. Drop a like if you guys enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check me out over on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram, specifically twitch.tv/hazardoushdtv. And I'll see you guys in the next GTA RP video. Adios, amigos.